Thank you, John. Good morning, everybody. I want to share with the audience a few takeaways from the first workshop to have in mind during today's discussions. The first workshop, as John mentioned, shared information on what to report out about the quality of data that are being integrated together in these projects. Today's presentations will focus more about actually the integration process itself and what to report out about those processes. I am up here actually representing the work of a work group that included Mark Prell from ERS, Polly Phipps from BLS, Rolf Schmidt from Transportation, Renee Gindi from NCHS, and Nicole Doriak from BLS. A lot of work done by Alex Brown and Andrew Caparozzo at JPSM, who are writing up the findings and the summaries from the first workshop with us. So the first workshop intentionally did not include information about reporting standards for data collected through survey operations, primarily because we have a large body of information about quality indicators for such data already. We have decades worth of standards and a lot of information about how we're supposed to report out that information. Less well understood were quality metrics for administrative record data and data that were less structured or unstructured. And before I talk a little bit about what the workshop focused on in relation to those types of data, I want to put a plug in for a CNStat report called Innovations in Federal Statistics, Combining Data Sources While Protecting Privacy. The reason why I want to put a plug in for that is because a lot of concepts that guided the first workshop, and I think our next two workshops, are really drawn from this report that was edited by Bob Groves, who actually presented during the first workshop. So I recommend the report very highly. So the first workshop was really organized into two parts. The first part, the morning sessions, focused on administrative record data.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
Doing better?
So people can hear.
Okay. Sorry. Let me, if people online can't hear, stick up your thumb.
Actually, I think it's more in the room.
Okay.
Too. People can't hear.
All right, yeah, so I was trying to speak into the Polycom. Sorry about that. Okay. Moving on. Sorry. So the presentations for the administrative record data covered a wide range of topic domains, including a presentation by Steve Cohen about health data, Bonnie Murphy and Crystal Connie discussing price index data that are used by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and CPI and the PPI. Some work Mary Muth has been doing using food purchasing data to estimate costing and pricing for food purchases. And then Mike Benning and Dave Shepard gave a presentation from the Census Bureau sort of about broader characteristics that they look at because they're working on a large number of different projects for the Census Bureau that are integrating a large volume of administrative record data. So they had a lot of good insights into agreements that you want to set up with providers of such data. The presentations noted several key aspects of administrative data to consider and report on when integrating such data with survey data. The big three takeaways I think that I heard or that we heard was really make sure that you're very clear about the original purpose of the administrative record data collection itself before you start integrating it in with other types of data. Make sure that you're very sensitive to the level of documentation and if it's sufficient to determine the quality of the data, and also to determine whether or not you can pull from it when you yourself are trying to document what you're doing in your own project. And then there was a large series of comments and issues around accessing data from private data sources, including issues around the need for data providers to protect how they collect the data and who they collect the data from, and changes in how they collect the data over time. And in both areas and issues, the private providers not always being clear about either the processes they're using or about changes that are in those processes over time. So these are some very important things to consider when looking at private record data. The afternoon session focused on structured and unstructured data. We had presentations by Dr. Peter Elkin, who is doing some really innovative work integrating a large range of different types of data to set up a set of medical records that are intended to help predict and diagnose patient health conditions much more effectively. That was followed by some work that David Johnson has been doing for a long time at the U.S. Department of Agriculture and how they go about using satellite imagery and mixing satellite image data with other types of data to predict crop yields and food production. We had a very good presentation by Subrat Mahapatra from the state of Maryland, Department of Transportation, about work that his agency is doing combining road sensor data and administrative data and survey data, and the different issues that are associated with trying to put those pieces of data together and explain them to his bosses and the public. So that was fascinating. And then we had a discussion by Roberto Rigobon about how he goes about using web scraping to do price estimation projects and some limitations with web scraping techniques as a data source. So there were several common themes that existed between the administrative record data session and the afternoon session on the less structured data. Again, the primary one is to make sure that you are always very, very clear about why the original data were collected to begin with, so you have a really good understanding of their purpose before you start applying them to other procedures and research projects. But there were also some factors that were unique in the unstructured and less structured data part of the presentation. These really focused around the issue of technology and how rapidly changing technology can affect the comparability of data over time and how difficult it is to document that. The advantages that some of the technologically driven data that are taken from sensors and satellites have in terms of timeliness. Those data can be collected on a more regular basis, often in real time. So they're very, very helpful, particularly in terms of trying to get overtime estimates that we have challenges with our standard sample surveys. And then the final sort of takeaway from the unstructured and less structured data work was that we need a lot more information about, what actually is high quality unstructured data. And we got some ideas about where to start looking for sort of industry sources for quality metrics there. So our next steps, we're going to complete our summary from the first workshop here very shortly. That work not only includes the work from the first workshop or summary of it, but we're also looking at a series of administrative record data quality systems to see if they have applicability to the U.S. statistical system. We're also looking at a broader range of quality assessment metrics that are much more high level and trying to figure out if we can apply those again to the federal statistical system. And we're working on information that we want to share during the upcoming